So imagine it's a Tuesday morning. You're scrolling through your phone before you've even gotten out of bed, and you see it. Your portfolio is down, not a little, like noticeably down. Crypto is in the red. Your index funds look like they went off a cliff. And somewhere in the comment section of a finance subreddit, someone is already saying the words you've been dreading, "This is just the beginning." And you feel that thing, that uncomfortable little knot in your chest. Part fear, part confusion, part, if you're being honest with yourself, that weird guilt of thinking maybe I should have done something differently. Maybe I should have sold earlier. Maybe I shouldn't have bought in the first place. Maybe I'm just not smart enough for this. My name is Josh, and I spend probably an unhealthy amount of time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to turn moments of pure market chaos into the foundation of serious generational wealth, while others watch those same exact moments pass them by, frozen in panic, and wake up 5 years later wishing they'd done something different. I've been studying crashes, corrections, bubbles, and recoveries for years now, and the pattern that keeps showing up over and over again is almost uncomfortable in how consistent it is. The people who get rich during a crash don't have better information. They're not smarter. They don't have some secret insider scoop. What they have is a different relationship with fear and uncertainty. And that's actually something you can learn. So today, and I want to be really careful here, because this is not financial advice and I'm not your financial advisor, what I want to do is walk you through what's actually happening in 2026 with both crypto and the broader stock market, why this crash might actually be one of the most important financial moments of your lifetime, and, maybe most importantly, what the people who are going to come out of this significantly richer are already doing right now that most people aren't. Let's get into it. Okay, so first, let's talk about what's actually going on, because I think a lot of people are treating this moment like it's just a regular dip, a temporary blip, something that'll bounce back in a few weeks. And that might be partly true, but the context of this crash is different, and the context matters enormously when you're thinking about how to respond. The crypto market's decline in early 2026 isn't happening in isolation. It's happening alongside what looks like a broader risk-off environment, where investors are pulling money out of anything perceived as high risk and parking it in things like treasury bonds, gold, and cash. When that happens across the board, it's usually a signal that something deeper is going on. Confidence is shaking, and when confidence shakes, it shakes hard and fast. On the stock market side, you've got a combination of factors that have been building for a while. Interest rates that stayed higher for longer than most analysts predicted. Corporate earnings that started missing expectations in sectors that were supposed to be bulletproof. Some geopolitical uncertainty that I won't pretend I fully understand every variable, but it's adding a layer of unpredictability that markets really, really hate. Here's the thing about markets, though. They don't crash because of bad news. They crash because of unexpected bad news. The difference is important. When everyone knows a problem is coming, it gets priced in slowly. When something surprises the market, you get these violent gut punch drops that feel catastrophic in the moment. And this is where most people make their first mistake. They see the violence of the drop, the red candles, the alarming headlines, the Twitter doom posting, and they conclude that the fundamentals of everything have permanently changed. That this time it's different. That this time the market is actually going to zero. It almost never is. I'm not saying there's no pain ahead. There might be. These things can grind for a while before they turn. But the pattern, across 1929, 1987, 2000, 2008, 2020, the pattern is remarkably consistent. Crashes end, recoveries happen, and the people who were buying when blood was in the streets came out the other side with positions that would have been unthinkable to get at any other time. The question is, will you be one of those people? And honestly, that's a character question as much as it is a financial one. Here's something I find genuinely fascinating about market crashes, and I think about this a lot. In theory, a crash is the most obvious buying opportunity in the world. Prices go down. That's literally it. The thing you wanted to own last month is now available at a discount. It's like your favorite store putting everything on sale. Except instead of sprinting toward the sale, most people run away from the store because the sign in the window looks scary. Why does this happen? Well, there's this thing in behavioral economics, and honestly, I could talk about this for hours, called loss aversion. The basic idea is that humans feel the pain of a loss about twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. So losing $100 feels about twice as bad as gaining $100 feels good, which means when the market is dropping and you're watching your portfolio shrink, your brain is experiencing something genuinely distressing. It's not irrational to feel scared. It's actually a deeply hardwired human response. But here's the cruel irony. The same psychological mechanism that is designed to protect you from pain is also the mechanism that, in investing, tends to cause the most long-term financial damage. Because here's what actually happens during a crash cycle. Prices fall. The news gets scary. People panic and sell, often at the worst possible moment, locking in their losses. Then the market stabilizes. Then it starts to recover. Then it goes back up. Then it sets new all-time highs, and the people who panic sold look up one day to see the thing they sold at a loss is now worth 3 times what they paid for it. And they feel that. They really, truly feel that. This happened with Bitcoin in 2018. It happened in 2020 during COVID. The people who held, or better, who bought more during those drops, experienced returns that looked almost fake in hindsight. Now, I want to say something that might sound a little uncomfortable. If you've been in crypto or stocks for a while and you're currently feeling the urge to sell everything and just get out, that feeling you're having right now is the market talking to you. It's the market saying, essentially, will you give me your assets at a discount so someone else can hold them through the recovery? You don't have to oblige. All right, let's get to the part that actually matters. What do? And look, I want to be careful here not to be one of those people who just vaguely says, buy the dip, without giving you anything useful. That phrase has become almost meaningless because it doesn't answer the important questions. What do you buy? How much? When? And what if it keeps going down after you buy? So let me walk through what the people who've been through multiple crashes tend to actually do. First thing, they do not try to call the bottom. This is a really, really common mistake, and I've made it myself. The bottom is essentially impossible to predict in real time. You can know it in hindsight. You can look at a chart 6 months later and point to the exact lowest point. But living through it in real time is a completely different experience. The bottom never feels like the bottom. It usually feels like the beginning of more pain. What actually works, and this is boring, but it works, is something called dollar cost averaging, which just means you take whatever amount you've decided to invest and you spread it out over regular intervals. Maybe you invest a set amount every 2 weeks for the next several months. Some of those buys will be higher than the eventual bottom. Some will be lower. The average will be somewhere in the middle, and critically, somewhere significantly below where prices were before the crash. This approach does something really important for your psychology, too. Instead of making one big bet on a single moment that you'll constantly second-guess, you're making a series of small, consistent decisions. It removes some of the emotional weight. It turns investing during a crash from a terrifying gamble into a disciplined, systematic process. Second thing, they focus on quality. During a crash, everything goes down. The great companies, the mediocre companies, the outright bad companies, they all drop. But here's what happens during the recovery. The quality stuff comes back first and hardest. The garbage often doesn't come back at all. In crypto, this means focusing on assets with actual use cases, real network activity, and strong developer ecosystems. In stocks, It means companies with strong balance sheets, real earnings, and durable competitive advantages. This is not the moment to gamble on speculative assets hoping for a miracle. This is the moment to build positions in things you believe will still be relevant and growing 5 or 10 years from now. I think of it like this, and this is maybe a weird metaphor, but bear with me. Imagine a flood hits a city. Afterward, when the water recedes, well-built houses are mostly fine. Poorly built ones are rubble. The crash is the flood. The recovery period reveals which assets were actually solid all along. Third thing, they think in years, not weeks. This one is so simple it almost doesn't feel like advice, but I genuinely think it's the most important mindset shift you can make. The people who come out of crashes significantly wealthier are almost universally people who are thinking about a 5 to 10 year horizon, not a 5 to 10 week one. If you're looking at your portfolio every single day right now, you are almost certainly making worse decisions than if you were checking in monthly. Daily volatility is just noise. It has very little predictive value for where things will be in 3 years. But it has enormous emotional impact on your decisions in the moment. I want to spend a minute on crypto specifically because I know a lot of people watching this are dealing with a really particular flavor of pain right now. Crypto crashes are different from stock market crashes in a few important ways. They're faster, they're deeper, and, this is the part people forget, the recoveries have historically been more violent to the upside too. Bitcoin went from around $65,000 in late 2021 to under $17,000 by late 2022. That's a brutal, brutal drawdown. But it then went on to set all-time highs above that previous peak. Now, nothing about past performance guarantees future results, I have to say that, but the structural argument for crypto, particularly Bitcoin and Ethereum, hasn't really changed because the price dropped. The technology still works. The network effects are still there. The institutional adoption that was building hasn't disappeared. What has happened is that a lot of the speculative excess has been washed out. The meme coins, the projects that were basically just vibes and white paper promises, the leverage that was propping up prices artificially, all of that gets destroyed in a crash. And honestly, that's healthy. That's the ecosystem cleaning itself up. What's left, if you're careful about what you're looking at, tends to be the stuff with actual staying power. And buying that stuff at crash prices, that's basically what every crypto success story from the last decade has been built on. The thing I'd caution against, and this is really important, is the urge to try to recover losses fast by taking on more risk. When people are down significantly, there's this desperation that sets in where they start chasing high-risk, high-reward plays trying to get back to where they were. And statistically, that makes things much worse. The goal in a crash isn't to recover fast. The goal is to position yourself well for the recovery. There's a difference. Okay, so let's get concrete. Because I know some of you are sitting there thinking, okay, I hear you, but what do I actually do right now today? Here's a short list of genuinely actionable things. Audit your current positions. Look at what you own and ask yourself honestly, if this goes down another 30%, do I believe in it enough to hold through that? If the answer is no, that's useful information. Not because you should necessarily sell, but because it tells you that maybe you're in things you don't fully understand or believe in, and that's a problem you should address. Build a watch list of things you'd want to own cheaper. This is what the people who profit from crashes actually do in advance. They have a list, specific assets, specific prices, and when those prices hit, they act on a plan instead of reacting to emotion. Make the list now while you're relatively calm. You'll thank yourself later. Reassess your emergency fund. This is boring but important. If a market crash also coincides with any kind of personal financial stress, job instability, unexpected expenses, and you don't have cash reserves, you might be forced to sell investments at exactly the wrong time. Make sure you have a cushion so that your investment decisions are made by choice, not desperation. Stop reading every headline. I say this as someone who is absolutely guilty of doing the opposite. Financial news is designed to provoke emotional reactions because emotional reactions drive engagement. Headlines during a crash are almost always designed to make you feel more scared than the underlying situation warrants. Reading 20 scary articles in a row does not make you more informed. It makes you more anxious and more likely to make reactive decisions. Talk to an actual financial advisor if you're unsure. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but I genuinely mean it, especially if you're close to retirement or if you have a specific financial situation with unique considerations. This stuff is too important to navigate purely based on YouTube videos, including this one. I want to end on something that I think doesn't get said enough in these kinds of conversations because we spend so much time talking about tactics and strategies and psychology that we sometimes miss the forest for the trees. Crashes are, weirdly, one of the most democratizing events in financial markets. Here's what I mean by that. In a bull market, when everything is going up, the people who already have the most money accumulate the most new wealth, basically by default. The rich get richer because they own more assets and the assets are appreciating. The playing field is tilted heavily in their favor. But in a crash, the thing that matters most isn't how much money you already have. It's how you behave. It's whether you can stay calm when everyone around you is losing their mind. It's whether you have a plan. It's whether you understand what you own well enough to hold it through volatility instead of folding the moment it gets uncomfortable. A person with a moderate amount of savings who buys consistently through a crash in quality assets and holds for the next several years, that person can generate the kind of returns that would have been genuinely difficult to achieve during the same period in a normal market. The crash essentially compresses time. It lets you buy 5 years' worth of growth potential in a matter of months. That's what I mean when I say this moment matters, not in a hypey, get-rich-quick way, more in a quiet, this is how financial trajectories actually change kind of way. The people who look back at 2026 and say, that was when everything changed for me financially, they exist. They're out there right now making calm, deliberate decisions while most people are paralyzed. You can be one of them. So look, let me bring this back to where we started. That feeling of dread when you opened your portfolio. That knot in your chest. That voice saying, maybe I'm not smart enough for this. I want to gently push back on that voice. Because this stuff isn't actually that complicated once you strip away the noise. The principles that determine who wins financially during a crash are simple. Understand what you own. Buy quality things at lower prices on a regular schedule. Don't make panic decisions, and think in years, not days. That's basically it. The hard part isn't understanding the strategy. The hard part is having the emotional discipline to follow it when everything around you is screaming that the world is ending. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that emotional discipline comes from willpower alone. It comes from actually understanding why markets crash and recover, from building a plan before the chaos hits, and from having a clear enough sense of your own financial goals that short-term volatility doesn't destabilize your whole sense of direction. The crash is happening. That part you can't control. But what you do next, how you respond, whether you panic or prepare, whether you look back in 5 years and see this as the moment you finally made real financial progress, that part is still entirely up to you. And I genuinely believe you're capable of getting it right. If this was helpful, drop a comment below. I read as many as I can. And if there's a specific angle of this, specific assets, specific strategies, specific psychological patterns that you'd want me to dig into in more depth, let me know. I'm planning a follow-up on exactly which sectors and asset classes tend to recover fastest after a broad market correction, and I think it's going to be genuinely eye-opening. Take care of yourself. think long term, comment your thoughts, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in the next one.